Alright YouTube, welcome to the very first tech video that I'm doing. This is the 9159 Mosin Nagant Carbine. As you can tell, it's very similar looking to an M38. It handles a lot differently though. I can't explain what the difference is exactly. You'd have to actually handle one to really be able to tell. But it feels like a shortened 9130, which it is a shortened 9130, so you know, there's that. Anyway, this is the tech video that we're going to be doing. This applies to all Mosins except for several of the fins, which are different in their barrel band areas and their overall construction. For the most part though, their field stripping is identical, which is to say, field stripping a Mosin, all you have to do, lock your bolt back, check your chamber if it's loaded, depress your trigger, and your bolt will fall out. You've field stripped a Mosin now. Congratulations. Now I'm going to have an entirely separate video dedicated to working with the bolt. That's checking headspace, setting headspace, all that stuff. I'll actually be using my 9130 over there for that because I am going to be packing this up for shipping, so actually this video serves a dual purpose. I get to show you how to disassemble a Mosin, and I get to have this ready for packing and shipping, so hooray for laziness and multitasking. Now, the first thing you should have done was remove your bolt, check your chamber, pinky check. Always put your pinky in there, make sure that there is not a round sitting in there. Mosins are notorious for having a weak extractor. And if that extractor breaks, you can have a live round sitting inside of your chamber and not know it because it won't come out. The bolt won't be able to extract it, it'll just leave it there. So always take your pinky and check unless the gun has just recently been fired, at which point that chamber is going to be red hot, and if you do that you're going to end up with a second-degree burn. Actually, that would be hilarious if you do that, post pictures. Next thing you do, you get a little close up here, you take off your cleaning rod. The cleaning rod is pretty obvious, you just turn it until it comes loose and then you pull it out and you're done. Now, for the barrel bands, you'll notice that you have these big retainers here. These ones on this one are loose, so they're easy to take off. Now, a common complaint I've been getting about the 9130 refurbs is that they have very tightly secured barrel bands. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a pain in the ass to disassemble them when they have that problem. So, what a lot of people will do, they'll either take their multi-tool or just a regular screwdriver, get in close here, and you'll notice on this barrel band you have a little button right here. You can press that in with a screwdriver, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to damage the finish and have this sent back to me as damaged property. But you can do that, and then you just push the barrel band forward and it stays on the gun. Do not try to remove these, you can damage them very easily. They are spring, they are very strong, but if you bend them, then you're SOL because you're not going to be able to find some replacements. Now, next part is the rear barrel band, which is always more difficult. You have to push down on the front here, and using all three of your hands, you have to sometimes take a screwdriver and gently pry it. Now the key word here is gently. If you do not do this right, you can seriously damage your wood and your finish, and then you're SOL once again. Now, as you can see, this can be a little tough to pull sometimes, and what the Russians prescribed for this is rubbing a little bit of gun oil over the top of the handguard before you slide off your barrel bands. Now supposedly this will lubricate it. I've never tried it, so I can't speak for its effectiveness. If you have tried it, post in the comments below. I'm sure we will be very interested to hear about your results. Now, a key feature of a lot of these 9159s is that the entire stock is cut down from a 9130. So your hand guard is going to be a cut down 9130 hand guard that's been capped on the end here. They're pretty neat. If you look inside, you can sometimes find some interesting proof marks. This one has a little double W, I guess. You can kind of see that. Maybe not, I don't know. It looks like the Romanov eagle, so there you have it. Now, next thing you do, there's a screw on the tang here. Take that out first. If I can get the screw to cooperate, there we go. This part should be self-explanatory, but you would not believe how many times I've been asked about it. You can, and by the way, you can take either screw out first. I just take the top one out because it happens to be there, and because I like having the gun upside down and gripped firmly right here when I take out the second screw. And make sure you grip it firmly, because otherwise your barreled action is going to fall right out of your stock. And it's heavy. It's going to hurt like hell if it falls on your nuts. That's all I'm saying. Now, you can remove your magazine assembly. And I recommend taking a moment to kind of look this over, because a lot of times there is dirt and grit in here that you haven't noticed. And this one is, of course, clean as a whistle because I keep these very, very clean. Now, if you ever need to remove all the rounds in your magazine at the same time, there's a little latch right here. You push that backward and pull down your floor plate, and there you go. Depress your follower and all of your rounds will fall out. It'll also allow you, if you depress the follower, you can also remove it from the magazine body. I don't recommend doing this very often because there's no real purpose for it unless you have to clean inside. If you're shooting dirty ammo, Russian military surplus heavy ball comes to mind. Make sure that you clean inside of here because a lot of the residue is going to get in there and it's just nasty. It can corrode the inside. That's that. Now, you simply lift your barreled receiver and make sure that your barrel bands are not holding the barrel onto the stock anymore. Make sure they're fully forward, and lift your barreled receiver out of your stock. And that is what a Mosin barreled receiver looks like. Now, underneath here, you will notice a tiny little date, 2 numbers usually, unless it's a hex receiver. Sometimes those have 3 numbers. Sometimes they have an arsenal stamp. Always have an arsenal stamp, I should say. This one is actually one of the wartime dated ones, and it's got a 4-digit date, which I've never seen before on a wartime receiver. This is actually the first time I've had this out. 1941 is Chef's, in case you're wondering. Now you've got your barreled receiver out. I am not going to be disassembling the trigger group because it is a nightmare. There are a lot of Jesus parts in here. This is also a good time to look at your extractor, or your interrupter I should say. It's this little widget right here. Make sure to check and oil that periodically because dirt and grit will get in there, and periodically you might get a stoppage out of it. I had a 91 back in the day that was completely grimed up here and it would not feed out of the magazine. You had to manually cycle it each round. So just make sure to keep that clean. And the final piece you get is your stock itself. You can check inside the barrel channel. Occasionally you'll get interesting stamps. This one has some kind of a lowercase g up there. I've never seen that before. And actually, and as an aside, that is the fun part about Mosins. They really have infinite variation. There are so many stamps out there, we really don't know what any of these stamps mean for the most part. And it's just really fascinating to find them and, you know, theorize about them. So there's that. Anyway,